You don't want to go. That's the first truth you swallow on your way to the family meeting. The group text had called it a casual catch-up, but you know better. Nothing's ever casual when your family gets together, especially not when there's food opinions and something vaguely competitive in the air. It's at your sister Jenna's office, which doubles as a conference room when she wants to feel important. Glass walls, bland coffee, one too many quotes about hustle taped to the door. You park across the street, hands resting on the steering wheel for a moment longer than necessary. You've been here before, not just the building, but the feeling. That tight coil in your chest, that familiar mental rehearsal smile. Nod. Don't let them get under your skin. Don't show your hand too early. You walk in last as usual. The rest are already gathered. Jenna in her power blazer, Brian leaning too far back in his chair like someone waiting for applause, and your dad holding court at the head of the table with that half smirk that says you should thank us for including you at all. They glance up like you're the intern who forgot the pastries. Hey, Jenna says. She says it like punctuation. You nod and take the seat closest to the door. Always closest to the door. Someone's brought food, Trader Joe's snacks, and lukewarm coffee. You skip both. You're not here to eat. You're here because showing up still feels like a moral obligation, even when you're certain they invited you just to maintain optics. Brian's already mid-story about his killer bonus. Something about closing a deal, flying out to Palm Springs, some client who only drinks lavender martinis. He says it like he's reciting a resume.
You pretend to care.
Jenna interrupts him to mention her latest podcast feature, holding up her phone to prove the episode exists like you might accuse her of fabricating her relevance. Your dad cuts in with a half-hearted complaint about taxes. That's his default. It makes him feel serious, like a man with too much money to be understood. No one asks how you are. No one ever asks how you are. They fill the room with their accomplishments like coats thrown over every available chair, and suddenly there's no space for you to sit comfortably. Not really. So you shrink. Not physically, but emotionally. You do that thing where you get quiet and let them think it's because you have nothing to say. It's easier than trying to wedge your truth between their bullet-pointed victories. Jenna circles back to the agenda. We're just checking in, she says. Family check-in. Who's doing what, who needs what, and who can help. You bite your cheek. You know what this is. It's less about support and more about hierarchy. And you're already at the bottom. When it's your turn to speak, the air goes still, not because they're eager to hear from you, but because they're waiting to confirm their suspicions. That you're falling behind.
That you're struggling.
That your life is a series of creative ways to avoid admitting failure. You clear your throat. I'm good, you say. Brian snorts.
That's it.
You shrug. Yeah. The silence that follows isn't neutral. It's loaded. They don't press because pressing might lead to an answer they don't want. Or worse, a success they hadn't anticipated.
They don't know what you've been building.
And you don't plan to tell them. Not yet. You sit there watching the pecking order unfold like it's choreographed. Jenna brings out a whiteboard. Yes, an actual whiteboard, and starts writing bullet points in dry erase marker. Passive income, she writes as if it's a family trait. Then, travel goals 2024. Then, support strategy who needs help. Brian naturally talks the most during that part. Well, I'll be in Italy for most of Q2, he says, like he's giving a TED talk instead of casually talking to blood relatives. So, if anyone needs anything handled locally, don't count on me, but I'm happy to consult. Consult. As if his opinion is a service now. Your dad leans back, nodding like a coach at halftime. That's great, son. It's good to see you making moves. Always knew you'd outpace the rest of us. The rest of us. You're sitting right there. Jenna adds something about turning her podcast into a subscription model because people will pay for quality content. No one mentions that her show has 32 monthly listeners, and most of them are co-workers trying to stay in her good graces. It's not envy. That's the funny part. You're not jealous. You just wish they were a little less hungry for validation. A little less eager to narrate their ambition in rooms where no one asked. When it's your turn again, Jenna gestures with the marker. What about you? Any updates? You smile because you've rehearsed this moment in your head already. You practiced not giving them the satisfaction of knowing what's coming.
Just keeping it low-key, you say?
Brian raises an eyebrow. So still between things.
There it is.
That phrase. Between things, the family's favorite euphemism for failure. Not working, not thriving, not measurable. Still invisible. You sip your coffee and let them think what they want. Jenna tilts her head. Have you thought about doing some freelancing? I mean something tangible?
Like your life is intangible.
Your dad chimes in, voice dipped in a patronizing tone you know too well. Or just pick something and stick with it. I mean, stability matters, especially now. You're not getting any younger. You want to laugh. You really, really want to laugh. Instead, you nod like a student, absorbing a lesson you've already outgrown. And then Brian again. Maybe if you need a referral or something. I mean, I've got contacts. You look at him. Really look at him. He means well in the same way people mean well when they toss coins at someone they think is drowning.
And the truth is, you're not drowning.
You're building the damn boat. But you let him believe it. Because nothing throws them off more than when you don't defend yourself. The conversation drifts back toward Jenna's travel rewards credit cards and your dad's property taxes. Someone jokes that if things get rough, they'll just Airbnb the guest room. That's the hustle life, Brian laughs. You wonder if anyone in this room has ever done something generous without Instagramming it. Eventually, Jenna writes, "Financial support TBD" on the whiteboard, then turns to you. Unless you need something sooner, it's not a question. It's a spotlight, and you stay calm in the heat of it. Nope, you say lightly, "I'm good." And they believe it's a lie. Because the only version of you they recognize is the one that needs help. The one who shows up last. The one who doesn't do real work. The one who floats through life quietly scraping by.
They have no idea what you've been building in silence.
Not yet. But soon, it starts with a joke. They always do. That's how your family wraps cruelty in gift paper, sharp-edged remarks tucked inside what they call just teasing. Brian leans back in his chair, balancing it on two legs like he's 13 again, and says with a smirk, "Well, I guess not everyone can be a homeowner, right?" Then he glances at you. No offense, everyone laughs. Even your dad chuckles, that low, habitual sound he makes when he wants to signal who's winning. Jenna looks down and pretends to adjust her ring, but you see the edge of a grin pulling at her mouth. It lands. Right there. A hit, and no one calls it out because they don't see it as a hit. Just family humor. Just harmless banter.
Your ears get hot.
Not because you're embarrassed, but because the truth sits quietly in your bag, folded and waiting, signed and dated, and very, very real.
And still you say nothing.
You look at Brian, who once borrowed $5,000 from you during a rough patch he's never mentioned since. He's wearing a watch you know he can't afford without his wife's second income. He's still renting, still living paycheck to paycheck, but he's louder than you, and sometimes that's all it takes. He has a loud life, a visible one, but not a stable one. They don't know that, and they don't know what you know. You glance around the table, trying to remember when being underestimated started to feel like armor. How invisibility became a kind of freedom. You've watched them talk over you, around you, through you for so long they forgot you were even in the room. That's okay. Let them forget. Because the best part about being underestimated is watching their faces the moment they realize they were wrong. Your dad lifts his mug and says, "Nothing wrong with a modest life. Some people just aren't wired for the grind. And that's fine too." He says it gently. He means it as a kindness.
It isn't.
It's a declaration you're not like us. Not driven, not hungry, not ambitious. You let him finish his sip, then lean forward slightly. Modesty isn't the same thing as poverty, you say, your voice soft but steady. Brian rolls his eyes. Come on, we're not attacking you. Jenna adds, it's a family meeting. Let's keep it light. But the damage is done. Not to you, to them. Because you're not hurt. You're done being hurt.
What you are is ready.
You glance at your bag. The envelope's inside. A contract with your name on it. A deed with your signature. This building to be exact, legally under your ownership as of 3 weeks ago. They're sitting in it, right now, holding coffee above flooring you paid for. making jokes about you being poor while surrounded by your investment. You smile. Not big, not smug. Just the kind of smile that people mistake for patience right before the twist in the story. You lean back. Let them keep laughing. You won't need to say much, because the reveal is coming. And the silence afterward. That's going to be the loudest thing in the room. You don't remember the rest of their conversation, not because it wasn't loud, but because your mind had already left the table. They're talking about vacation homes and interest rates, some debate about refinancing that's way above your dad's actual financial literacy, but far below the level of smug confidence he brings to the topic. Brian's explaining a crypto win that wasn't technically insider info, and Jenna's droning about brand partnerships no one asked about. You look at them not like family, but like a case study. It hits you how often they've filled space with noise. How many times you've sat right here, giving them exactly what they wanted, a quiet body in the room, who claps at the right moments and never makes them uncomfortable. It's not that they never let you speak. It's that they never really listened when you did. That's what stings. You think back to 3 months ago when you first saw the listing for this building. How unremarkable it seemed at first, just another slightly run-down office suite in a gentrifying block. But something told you to look closer, to picture what no one else could see, and you did. You pictured this exact moment, them, at this table, sitting in a room they think is neutral ground, joking about who's crushing it while you hold the title to the floor beneath their shoes.
No one asks what you've been working on. They haven't for years. Because they already wrote your story for you, the creative one. The wanderer, the dreamer who never really landed.
So you played along. You didn't correct them when they misunderstood your quiet for uncertainty, your soft-spoken answers for absence of direction. You let them think modest meant small. That not showing off was the same as not having anything to show. And they bought it. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? The way people will believe exactly what makes them feel superior. You learned early on that explaining yourself to people who've already decided your worth is like throwing water at a fireproof wall. It doesn't make a sound. It doesn't change a thing. It just leaves you soaked. So you stopped explaining. You stopped defending your choices, your pacing, your stillness. Stillness doesn't mean stagnation. It means strategy. You've never cared for the spotlight. You've seen how it burns, how it demands a new trick every time you step into it. You chose shadow, chose quiet, chose careful moves no one noticed until now. Anyway, Jenna says, turning back to the whiteboard, I think if we split the holiday costs evenly this year, it'll be easiest. I mean, except for you, obviously.
She looks at you when she says it. That tilted head sympathy. That performance of concern.
Unless you want to opt out, she adds.
You pause. You could let it slide. Again.
But something in your chest, something that's been waiting years says, now.
You reach for your bag.
Unzip it slow. Pull out the manila folder, thick, crisp, with just the right amount of weight. You set it on the table. Not dramatically. Just gently. Like you're laying down the final piece of a puzzle only you knew was missing. What's that? Brian asks, mouthful of pita chip.
You look at him. Paperwork, you say.
Your dad squints.
What kind of paperwork?
You slide the contract toward the center of the table, watching as they lean in, curiosity, edging out condescension, if only for a moment. Deed transfer, you say softly. For this building. Silence. Then Brian laughs. Wait, like the floor. You mean you're leasing this space?
You shake your head.
I own it.
Another beat of silence.
No, seriously, Jenna says, as if the joke's gotten too elaborate. You mean like part of it, right? A co-op or something?
You meet her eyes. All of it.
The room doesn't shift, it freezes. Suddenly, they're in a room that's changed shape entirely, not because the building moved, but because their position inside it has. They're not at the top anymore. They're not in control of the narrative.
You are.
There's a beat of stunned silence.
Then another.
You almost expect someone to laugh just to break the weight of it. But no one does. Because the silence you just dropped. It isn't empty. It's authority. It fills the room with a pressure none of them know how to respond to. Brian blinks. Wait, are you serious? You nod. Jenna squints at the contract like it might dissolve under scrutiny. This is the actual deed.
Your dad's voice is lower, slower. How long have you owned this?
You sit back in your chair, hands folded in your lap like you've just concluded a polite report. Closed 3 weeks ago. All cash. You don't say that you didn't need financing. You don't say that your investments had been quietly compounding while they assumed you were floundering. You don't say you've been working 3 jobs, 1 tech, 1 design, 1 consulting, all remote, all high yield while living below your means in a studio apartment no one ever bothered to ask about. You don't say it because you don't have to.
Let them sit in it.
Jenna slowly sets the papers down her fingers, moving like she's touching something radioactive. So, when I said we should split the holiday costs, you smile. Oh, I'm still in. I just won't be covering more than my share this time. Brian leans forward. How the hell did you pull this off? You said you were just keeping it low-key.
I was.
Your dad studies you now, not with dismissal, but calculation. You recognize that look. It's the same one he gives people he respects. The one he's never offered you until now. I underestimated you, he says. You nod. Yeah. Most of you did. They still don't know what to say. Because this wasn't in the script. You were supposed to be the sentimental one. The late bloomer. The creative, which in your family has always been code for broke but harmless. You weren't supposed to flip the board. Brian tries to recover. Well, that's impressive. Must be some operation you've got going. You meet his gaze. It is. He forces a laugh. Guess I'll have to hit you up for a lease next time. You shrug. Send me your credit score. Jenna coughs out a half laugh, but you can see it in her eyes. She's running the math now, trying to place you back in a category that makes sense to her. But nothing fits anymore. You've stepped out of the frame they built for you, and they can't unsee it. The energy in the room changes. You're no longer the underdog, the afterthought, the obligatory invitee. Now, you're the one with the power they didn't know they were sitting on top of. You think back to all the meetings like this over the years where you smiled and nodded through jokes that left you feeling small, where you offered to help with dishes or design their websites for free, or chip in just a little extra because someone else forgot their wallet. You remember being useful.
You remember being invisible.
You remember being enough quietly while they were busy being loud. And now you're done whispering your worth. You let the folder sit on the table untouched like a slow-burning candle. You've already said what needed to be said. The contract is the final word. You don't brag.
You don't explain.
You just let the truth be. That's the part they never taught you. Silence isn't just absence, it's choice. And when it's wielded with precision, it becomes a blade. So you let it cut. They don't talk over you anymore. Not in that moment, not for the rest of the meeting. The chatter that used to drown your voice now dies before it starts, like every thought has to be pre-approved by the weight of your silence. And it's not because you raised your voice.
It's because you didn't.
They've never seen you like this calm, composed, untouchable. Not defensive, not sarcastic, not scrambling to prove your worth with discounts or favors or over-apologetic smiles. Just still. Your dad leans forward, elbows on the table, as if trying to casually reclaim ground that isn't his anymore. So this building, he says slowly, like he's translating each word. Was it a solo investment? Or are you working with someone? The question isn't neutral. It's his way of asking, was this luck or strategy? Did someone hand this to you, or did you actually outplay us? You don't flinch. All mine. A pause. Cash, you add. He nods, once eyes narrowing, calculating again. If it were Brian sitting across from him, this would be the moment he offered mentorship advice, or some thinly veiled brag about how the next step is leveraging equity. But with you, he stays quiet, because this is the first time he doesn't know more than you. It unsettles him. Jenna breaks the tension with a soft laugh. Wow, Honestly, good for you. That's bold. Bold, like it was a risk. You smile at her. I prefer the word intentional.
She doesn't know what to do with that.
Brian clears his throat. So, wait, like what? Now, are you like becoming a landlord or something?
You raise an eyebrow. Technically, I already am.
He winces a little and you almost feel sorry for him. But then you remember every time he introduced you to a friend as my artsy sibling who's between projects, and the sympathy dries up. Your dad reaches for his coffee but doesn't drink. He just stares into the mug like it's going to provide a strategy.
We should have a talk sometime, he finally says. About expansion. If you're serious about this kind of thing.
If you're serious. You let it hang in the air. You could take that as a compliment, but you don't. Not yet. Because what you want isn't his approval. It's something rarer, something he may not be capable of. You want acknowledgement, but you're done asking for it. So instead you say, I've already got a few other properties in sight. This one's just the start. And it is. You spent years absorbing their projections, being the one who didn't quite fit, who marched to the beat of their own drum. They said it like a flaw, a defect, like you were too soft for real success. But they never noticed you were playing a longer game. You didn't want to be the loudest in the room. You wanted to own the room. And now you do. They shift in their seats, all three of them, like gravity itself has changed direction. Your father gives you a long, unreadable look. Jenna taps her pen on the whiteboard, suddenly unsure what to write next. Brian is staring at the envelope like it might do a magic trick if he watches long enough.
You say nothing.
Not because you've run out of things to say, but because you've already said everything that matters. They thought your silence was weakness. Now they know it was strategy. And for once, the meeting ends without anyone assigning you the role of helper of tagalong, of the one who should be grateful just to sit at the table. Because today the table is yours. You don't remember standing up, but somehow you're already on your feet. It's like your body knew before your mind did, this is the moment you leave. Not out of anger, not in protest. Just done. The envelope still sits in the center of the table. No one's touched it again. It might as well be a bomb. Or a mirror. You sling your bag over your shoulder, nice and slow. Intentional, like punctuation at the end of a sentence that has taken years to write. I'll send over the utility schedule later, you say, as if it's just another to-do list item. Wouldn't want Jenna's podcast editing suite getting cut off mid-recording. Jenna offers a paper-thin laugh. That's thanks. I mean, yeah.
You turn toward the door.
But before you reach it, Brian says, so you really just bought the whole building. No heads up, no text saying, hey, by the way, I own the roof over your head. You turn back slightly. Just enough. You've never asked what I was working on, you say, so I stopped offering. The room stills again. This time the quiet doesn't feel defensive. It feels like recognition. You glance around. Your dad's leaning back, arms crossed, not like he's skeptical, but like he's trying to remember the last time you looked taller than him. Jenna's fiddling with the corner of the whiteboard. Brian looks like he's trying to reverse engineer your life from the outside in, and finding the math doesn't add up. They're realizing that all their noise, the performances, the ego, the flexing, meant nothing in the end. Because while they were talking, you were building. And now you own the conversation. They tried to write your role for you, made you the supporting character in a story you were never meant to narrate. But today, with one quiet document and a steady voice, you changed the script, and they don't know their lines anymore. Your dad clears his throat like he's about to offer something, a tip, a question, maybe even an apology, but you don't wait.
You just nod once and open the door. See you at the next meeting, you say without looking back. You walk out into the hallway, the soft clack of your shoes echoing off the walls. You know they're still inside, still staring, still trying to rewrite what just happened in a way that makes them feel less small. But this isn't about them.
It never was. You take the stairs instead of the elevator, one step at a time, like each floor is a layer you're shedding old assumptions, old hierarchies, old versions of yourself that used to make excuses for being underestimated. And as you push open the heavy front door of the building, the air hits you differently. It smells like pavement, like city wind, like freedom. You smile to yourself. Not for them, not for validation, but because you know what it took to sit through all those years of condescension and keep your head down. You know how many late nights, side hustles, rejections, and lonely victories led to this moment. You know how hard it is to stay soft when the world is trying to harden you. And still you stayed soft. You stayed quiet. Until you didn't have to anymore. You don't check your phone for the first hour after you leave. Not because you're avoiding them, but because there's nothing left to say. The moment happened. The silence held. And that silence, that was your final word. You stop by a small cafe a few blocks away, the kind of place that feels like it belongs to no one and everyone all at once. The barista knows your name, your order, even the way you like your lid pressed flat. You tip extra. Sit by the window and watch. There's something about watching people move through their lives, unaware that your life just pivoted. You sip your drink and think about how long it took to get here, not just financially, but emotionally. How many years you spent shrinking in family gatherings, laughing too softly, nodding too often, letting others finish your sentences, or worse, rewrite them entirely. But today you wrote your own, and they read it cover to cover without a single interruption. Your phone finally buzzes. A message from Jenna.
Hey, I didn't mean what I said earlier. The split costs thing. That came out wrong. You don't respond.
Not yet. It buzzes again, Brian, this time. So, how'd you pull that off? Like the building for real. You almost laugh. Even now, he can't ask without slipping in disbelief, like you must have won a sweepstakes or stumbled into a fortune by accident. He doesn't know that you've been doing the math while he was doing impressions. That, while he chased applause, you chased leverage. You set your phone down and let the messages pile up. Because here's what no one tells you about finally being heard: you don't have to perform anymore. You don't have to fill silences to prove you belong. You don't have to overshare to get validation from people who've never done the work to understand you.
You've earned stillness.
And you plan to enjoy it. Back in the cafe, a young couple nearby argues in hushed tones about whether they can afford rent next month. You glance at them, not with pity, but with empathy. You've been there. You remember calculating groceries down to the cent. You remember signing contracts with shaking hands, hoping a dream was more solid than a spreadsheet. And now the ink dries beneath your name. Now you get the late-night calls, the questions, the weight of how did you do it. You stir your drink and don't answer the questions they haven't even asked yet. Because here's the truth: they never wanted your advice before. They only want it now that you've proved you don't need them. Eventually you walk home. Not in a rush. Not replaying the meeting. Just walking.
The city sounds different now. Or maybe you're just hearing it from a higher floor.
You pass a few buildings you've memorized over the years, the ones you once dreamed of owning but never said out loud. And now suddenly they feel within reach, not because you need more, but because you understand more. You stop in front of one and just look. No plans, no pressure, just the quiet thrill of knowing you could. Back at home, the sun begins to set behind your blinds. The sky is that strange halfway color, burnt orange and soft blue, like two moods trying to meet in the middle. You sit at your desk and pull out your folder. The original contract, the letter of approval, the blueprint.
You're not going to frame it. You're not going to post about it. You're just going to hold it for a minute.
And breathe. Because this is what earned looks like. You get the third message from your dad just after dinner. I owe you an apology. 6 words. Just that. No punctuation. Like he typed it fast and couldn't bring himself to reread it. You stare at it for a long time. It doesn't feel triumphant. It feels delayed. Like someone finally noticed the weather changed after stepping outside without a jacket. You're not ungrateful for the words, but you're not rushing to soak them in either. You've grown careful with what you allow to soften you. Instead of responding, you stand at your window and look out over the city. Somewhere out there is your building. Lit windows, locked doors, tenants who don't know your name but sign your checks, strangers who live under your roof. They don't ask you to prove yourself, and suddenly that feels like family. Your phone lights up again, Jenna, this time. Can we talk real talk? Just us. She's trying. You can feel it. And for the first time in years, she's not leading with her resume. She's asking, without the armor. You type back slowly. Not tonight. But soon. You don't owe anyone immediate access anymore. Not after all the years you were background music to their lead vocals. You close your eyes and think back to the earlier years when you'd show up to family dinners with good news, only for it to be drowned out by louder stories. When you hesitated before speaking because the room never felt interested in what you were saying. When being humble was really just your way of surviving indifference. And now you've done something that doesn't require applause. You don't need their validation. You have evidence. Your proof isn't the building. It's the stillness inside you. You think about sending one last message to the group chat, something like, "Thanks for today. Learned a lot." But then you stop. Because you're learning that not every silence has to be filled and not every chapter needs a closing line. Instead, you light a candle, not for symbolism, not for aesthetics, just for yourself, just to watch something burn slowly and peacefully, the way time used to feel before the need to explain your life to other people consumed it. Your journal is on your nightstand. You flip to a clean page, write 3 lines. Today I told the truth without saying much. Today I left the room without shrinking. Today I was not the version of me they expected. You close the book gently and sit with those words. Not for applause, not to be seen, but because you saw it. You witnessed your own clarity. A few blocks away, your family is probably still wrapping their heads around the shift, still replaying the moment you pulled the folder out, still debating how to frame it. Was it petty? Was it smart? Was it unfair not to warn them? Let them wonder. You're no longer trying to be understood by people who never asked questions in the first place. You rest your head against the wall and smile into the quiet. Because this isn't revenge. It's release. You wake up the next morning to a clear sky and a phone full of messages you still don't feel like answering. Something has shifted, not just in them, but in you. Your silence is no longer a holding pattern. It's a decision, a posture. You've said what needed to be said, and everything else is noise. For the first time in your life, you don't feel behind. You don't feel overlooked. You don't feel like you're waiting for someone to hand you a seat at a table they never wanted you to build in the first place. Because you built your own. You go for a walk before the world starts moving too fast. The streets are quiet, the air clean, the sun just beginning to rise behind the buildings, you're building among them. You slow down when you pass it, not out of pride, but out of quiet reverence. Like walking past a version of yourself that finally got the last word without ever raising their voice.
You think about what happens next.
Not with your family, that part will come on its own time if it ever does, but with you. Where do you want to go now that you've proven you can arrive anywhere on your own terms? You sit on a bench nearby. Watch commuters drift past earbuds and coffees clutched carrying their own invisible stories. No one knows what happened yesterday. No one knows who you are. And that anonymity feels like luxury. You take out your phone not to check the messages, but to open a folder. A new one. Next projects. Inside, notes on another property. A park renovation plan. A small coffee shop you've dreamed about opening, one that wouldn't be about profits, but about peace. The possibilities no longer feel like fantasies. They feel like facts waiting to be activated. You scroll past the texts from Jenna Bryan, your dad. You don't delete them. You don't respond either. Some lessons are best left to echo. You'll talk to them again, probably. Maybe even soon. But the dynamic has changed. You're no longer asking for space. You are the space. When you return home, there's no parade, no dramatic pause. Just your quiet apartment, your books, your plans, and you.
And that's enough.
You take out the contract once more just to hold it. Just to remind yourself it wasn't about the building. It was about the moment. The moment they looked at you and finally saw something they couldn't define, couldn't out-talk, couldn't claim. Power. Not in your voice, but in your stillness. Not in what you said, but in what you didn't need to say.
You light another candle.
Not to start something, but to let it keep glowing. And now, with the story behind you and the silence fully your own, you begin to feel something even deeper than pride. Peace. Not the peace that comes from being right or being seen or even being powerful, but the kind that slips in when you finally stop asking for space in rooms where you were always meant to outgrow the walls. You don't replay the meeting anymore. You don't need to relive the expressions, the stares, the awkward silence. That's theirs to carry now. You've laid it down. The truth is you didn't need them to understand. You needed you to stop hiding. And you did. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a performance. It was a reckoning, a quiet shift in gravity that placed you at the center of your own life for once. Not orbiting someone else's definition of success. Not competing in their race. Just arriving. Now, as the light dims and the city hums outside your window, you sit still. Breathe slower. Think less. Not because you've run out of thoughts, but because they've finally stopped fighting for space. Your story speaks for itself. No raised voices, no long speeches. Just an envelope, a signature, a truth no one saw coming. You may talk to them again one day. You may even forgive. But now you understand healing isn't always reconciliation. Sometimes it's knowing you walked away with your dignity intact. And if you're still awake, that's okay too. Some nights, just lying still and breathing softly is enough to return home to yourself.